So thank you for being here. We are growing on the channel. As you know, this is a channel about fantasy, mythology, and science fiction, especially the storytelling, how our stories told, and what can we learn from them. Yesterday, I was listening to a podcast about different narratives and narratives about um, empires, brutal empires, war conflicts, and so on. And the idea with the podcast was that the narrative differs, of course, between the different countries that is the who are fighting, the good one, the evil side. It depends on which side you are on. Uh, and somehow this caught my attention to talk a bit about the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And if you follow my channel, you know this is dear to me. This is Gardens of the Moon, the first book by Erikson. It's about the Malazan Empire and its expansion on the continent, or rather continents, in the Malazan world. And it's also very much about the people who are living in this world, about the soldiers, about the historians, about the different races, about the nobility, about the poor people, and so on. All these characters that are in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, you really get to know them. And when you get to know them, you understand that even if they live in a brutal empire that might seem evil, maybe they are not that evil. They are personalities with personal goals, different ambitions. They can be funny, they can be humorous, they can be evil, they can be um, not good to other people. But still, everyone is different, so everyone can be different, even in a brutal empire. This made me think a lot yesterday about this. I also think that uh, the fantasy genre let us explore this a bit, because especially the new fantasy books, which is considered to maybe be grim dark, and Malazan is not grim dark according to me, but that is a more not one-sided, not like Lord of the Rings, where there is an evil side and a good side. In Malazan Book of the Fallen, you basically can choose, and it's not black and white. And with that it comes, you could say, morally great characters, but also normal characters, because we as humans are not in one way or the other. We inhabit different characteristics and we have different values that might conflict, for example. When it comes to the book, I think the perspective that we get to know a lot of soldiers is interesting in Malazan Book of the Fallen, because they just happen to be there. Maybe they didn't want to be in the army, like in the TV show Band of Brothers, for example. They just got listed for Europe and for the Second World War. Suddenly they were in the war. Now, this kind of situation, you have to cope, I suppose. You have to survive. You have no choice not to be in that conflict, or not in that empire that fights against another empire or country or whatever it is. You just have to survive. And in the um, characterization and the descriptions in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, you get to know soldiers who really try to survive with the soldier banter, and there's a lot of humor. You also understand that some of them are not interested in the conflict at all. They don't know what they are doing there, and they have no clue, basically. You also find that they are caught in a struggle which concerns gods and religions, for example. But many people here, they are not interested in gods. Maybe they don't believe in it. Maybe they don't believe in rituals. There is a certain deck of dragons in Malazan Book of the Fallen that is very, very interesting. But that is especially interesting because some people suddenly get into this card deck, so to speak, because this card deck has a real power in the Malazan world. They didn't know about it, but they just have to adjust. Um, so I think that is interesting, and that made me relate to, let's say, many conflicts in the world today, where people can't choose. They are just in those conflicts and they have to adjust. And that's something else compared to the good and evil description of the Lord of the Rings, for example. That is not, then the evil ones are the evil. So if you read Lord of the Rings, I suppose, even if it's very good, you maybe not are learning about these gray shades of life that can appear in the real world. And with that said, I think the Malazan Book of the Fallen is a great example where fantasy is just more than fantasy. You also have a similar thing in all the Malazan books, but there is the co-author Ian C. Esslemonts, and this is Stonewielder, also about war, also about people who rebels against the Malazan Empire, against the empire. So in that book, we get to learn a lot of people who are opposing the evil empire. But are they pure good or are they evil too? I think that's an interesting perspective that you can think about. And it's not easy to talk about these questions, I know. And maybe for you reading fantasy, not used to this kind of perspective, it might feel a bit daunting or even provocative. But let's try to see if you can learn something more from fantasy. Also in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, you have the perspective of tribal culture, and it goes along in all the books. I think there is perspective between tribalism or tribal cultures and civilization. Erikson makes maybe a point. I don't know if he thinks so. If you're curious, you can watch the interviews with Steven Erikson here on the channel. You will find them in the list of author interviews. We talk a bit about civilization there. But those, especially Karsa Orlon, which is in the fourth book, House of Chains, that's no spoiler, everybody knows that. But basically, without taking him as an example, you in many cases follow people who, when you learn to know them, feels very traditional, very ritualistic, very leaning to really traditional values. And then you follow the story, and then you understand that their character arc will open them up a bit for making them more open-minded. But it also, they are not black and white. They are not they are no tropes, they are no stereotypes like the Bushman, so to speak, or the wild people from the wild, or the Native Americans, so to speak, or any other tribal Sapmi people here in the north of Scandinavia, for example. They are portrayed in these books like real people with own values that can reflect and can criticize. Also, that goes with the soldiers I was talking about earlier. And also in relation to if you actually believe in the tribal culture, or if you believe in the gods, or if you believe in the military conflict that is playing out in the Malazan books of the Fallen, or Malazan Book of the Fallen. So that was some perspectives from me. And I got this really great energy through listening to the podcast. And also when it comes to narratives, I think that is interesting with Malazan Book of the Fallen, because you always get the narrative from different sides. So there's first one person you follow, or one group, mostly groups, as you might know. And then they switch sides to another group, or Erikson describes another group, or in Esslemonts does it too. And then you will understand the conflict from another side, or you will understand things from another side. So this was some thoughts from me. I'm curious to hear yours. Do you think you can learn something from fantasy when it comes to all the horrible things that are going on in the world right now? It can be comfort, of course. It can be entertainment, of course, but it can also be something we can learn about. I think fantasy, if any genre, is a genre that actually touches upon a military conflict and war and the struggles. What would you do if you were in such a situation? Even more, I would say, the video games, the action RPGs, or the CRPGs, or the TTRPGs. But that's of course not on a video game. But they also pushes you to experience a situation that you cannot choose, but you're maybe in a military conflict, for example. What does it make to you, and how would you act? Maybe you are not interested at all in that. So people are ordinary people, even if they are in this battle for power, so to speak. So this was a short Malazan rant, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please subscribe and like, and see you very soon. So I'll try to post a few things tomorrow as well. So have a nice day and keep on reading, and enjoy your day. Bye.